From Lalate headquarters in Santa Monica, this is Afternoons Lalate.
It's a big afternoon of Afternoons LA with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus update of 2022. I have the latest details on the efforts by Joseph Biden to get those automatic adult stimulus checks to you ASAP in lieu of and in view of the world events unfolding by the minute. You're still going to get your money. We're going to be cutting over to Ukraine and the breaking news today. Ukraine has been able to hold Russian troops at least 18 miles outside of the capital city of Kyiv. But we have great news coming in across the board. As U.S. flights have been stopped into Russia, SWIFT, the funneling vehicle in which you transfer funds overseas, has now been yanked from Russian banks, making it harder for Russian officials to funnel their war. And we have great news as well about the price per crude Brent oil being kept into control as Joseph Biden sees new opportunities to levy out the price of how much you're paying at the pump. But we'll be starting with the Build Back Better Act, the incredible fourth stimulus recon that has at least $50,000 to $60,000 of checks in there. It's going to the finish line. It's in the Senate. But first up, before it, is the opportunity to reuse part of $1.5 trillion of discretionary funds in a continuing resolution that is just a few days away. This is money that could get you a check in just a few days. I have the latest details on CR for Stimulus 1.0. Breaking details on the CR for Stimulus 4.0. As the Russian sanctions and the Ukrainian funding bill is getting its own funding sources from the White House, so we don't have to worry about its implications or impairment of CR for Stimulus 1.0. We have the latest details on 2 and 3.0, and then we have those inflationary numbers. New detail that came in overnight as one of the Fed heads spoke about what we're going to see with that FOMC meeting in less than a few days, and what does that mean for your price at the pump and how it's impacted by the events in Ukraine. All the latest details in today's recording. This is the opportunity to raise your benefits up $300 a month if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and Railroad benefits and veterans benefits. Boy, we have a huge broadcast with a lot of breaking news about your money, and say at the very end, as viewers have gotten $10,000 this week a pop, I'm going to show you how to get these incredible sums of money. It's third stimulus, it's fourth stimulus, it's money right here, it's money right now, and we have the latest details from the battleground on the front line in Ukraine. It's a big afternoon, folks. I'm excited you're here. And our support is with the people of Ukraine. I stand with Ukraine. Let's get to the breaking news, and it starts right here, right now. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a beautiful day. It is a gorgeous day here in Southern California. Jump in the live chat and tell me how the weather is where you are. The great news is that the Build Back Better Act, the fourth stimulus recon, will be going to the finish line in the next few days. But before it will be CR for Stimulus 1.0, the budget bill. Inherent deadline, early March. I'm going to go right into that in just a second. And the great news is that CR for Stimulus 4.0, the Russian sanctions bill and the Ukrainian support legislation, is getting done separate and apart for our money. And there's new dedication of resources for the people of Ukraine overnight. It's huge. The latest details on that. Then we'll be cutting to SS 300 that will raise your benefits up an additional $300 a month for everyone from veterans to seniors, and this is a campaign promise from Joe Biden. I'm going to show you how you can get it done. I have breaking news that came in on a weekend, can you believe it or not, from a Fed head that spoke about where those FOMC numbers will be in less than a few days from now, and the price of Brent crude. It's breaking news, no usually on a weekend, but it's happening. The latest details of that, but first, we're going to start with your incredible money in the Build Back Better Act, and then we'll go into the CRs for Stimulus latest updates. But first, you know what we got to do. Go into this video and subscribe. You're watching the #3 most watched financial news channel in America. It's called Lalate. #3 among broadcast, cable, and internet. Our hope is to hit to #2. Bring us along for the ride. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video, 3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member, Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Calcino VIP. Sign up for those LA alerts so you get an alert when a new video goes live. Let's go right into the Build Back Better Act, the fourth stimulus recon, and it has a incredible pot of money in there for you. Middle class, low income, parents, single, seniors, you all get checks. 3 classes of checks, 3 add-ons. Let's go over each of them, passing the House back in November, staying in there on the Senate side. At least $15,000 of checks. 3 clusters. Let's go in right into that first cluster right now. In that first cluster, we have in there hazard pay. 1 more year of my essential workers getting those checks. If you haven't gotten from third stimulus, go to irs.gov and learn about it. CTC, $3,600 check for my children. Then $4,000 of care for elders. $4,000 of care for young children, brand new. $550 checks for the Pell Grant college students. Wow, got it in there. $12,500 for the purchase of a new electric vehicle. That is huge. And then they got home repairs. If you live in a low-income community, it is incredible, and it's totally free. That is the first of 3 classes of checks, and there's also 3 add-ons. The first add-on is one of the most exciting ones for viewers of this channel. It comes from here in Southern California from Maxine Waters, just a little bit less than $25,000. It is money for the purchase of your first home. She got it in there. This would be given to the seller from the federal government at the close of escrow in your name. It's huge. And again, that's money for the purchase of your first home. God bless her. That is the first of 3 add-ons of checks. So what then, folks, is the second cluster of checks? Let's look at it right now. In that second cluster of checks, heating up the Build Back Better Act for stimulus recon is home repairs to sustain a natural disaster, which is every time that Mitch has Lobster Fest 2022 next door. And paid leave. A paid leave is every time you have to see it and hear it. Oh my God, your eyes and ears need to go to the doctor right away. How much is that paid leave? It is a lot of money, folks. It is $1,700 a week if you make $70,000 or more per year. $35,000 annual salary, $800 a week. $14,000, $15,000 annual salary, $400 a week. It's huge. W-2, 1099, you all get these sums of money. 4 to 6 weeks per year. So yeah, that's a lot of money. And the great news, if you don't work, your son or daughter does work and they have to take off from work because of you suffering the consequences of listening to that horrible karaoke lobster music, then the child will get the check as wow. There you go. That is paid leave. Second add-on of checks. Oh, we're getting better by the second, folks. This is exciting. Second add-on of checks comes from Bob Casey. And can you imagine that if you're a senior in personal disabilities, you do not get home health care for free in this country? It's ridiculous. Well, Joe Biden put it as a campaign promise. He got it done. Bob Casey got it in there. A little bit less than $250 billion. Wow. That is free home health care for seniors and people on disabilities. Now let's go to that third cluster of checks where we find the word that has a letter H in it. Deliciousness. They got in this third cluster. Free internet for all checks. Then the farmers checks, the independent contractors checks, cheaper prescription medication checks, free school meals for all checks. And then the seniors. Oh, the seniors get a lot of checks. They get 2 on the House side, which are the Medicaid gap fix. More about that in a second. Stay at the very end of this video. We have a lot of money. I'm going to show you how to get $10,000 this week from this channel. Viewers are doing it. Stay at the very end of this video. Then seniors in the House side also got in there the hearing checks. On the Senate side, they vow to add in their dental, vision, and also lowering the eligibility age of Medicare from 65 to 55, which is par for the course of what we're talking about when we're talking about the senators adding checks in there. Among the checks they vow to add in there are, write those letters. Come on, I can see you. They did in the live chat. MSC. What is MSC? MSC is a program of checks that would be added to the Forced Stimulus Recall that already has $40,000 to $60,000 of checks in there. And these checks would be IRS monthly stimulus checks. Who would get them? Senators represent that everyone who got a third stimulus check will get the fourth stimulus check. Forgot who got the third? Let's recap it right now. Single individual, $75,000 less annual income, you get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, you get it. Double it. Family of four, you get as well, quadruple it. If you're on benefits, SSI, SSDI, Social Security, Railroad benefits, Veterans benefits, you get it as well. What else do we know about this? Well, it ain't income, so it ain't taxable. Comes nationwide. It is not just California stimulus. In California, we get an electric surfboard instead. And for that one viewer who said, my fiance said you have to pay it back. No, but I would look at the return policy on the engagement ring. I still think you have 30 days available. Return the engagement ring. You've chosen not wisely. It's not. It is a free money to your hand. It goes off the most recent tax return. And so the most recent tax return, if that had direct deposit, that's how you would get that money across the board. This is a body of legislation that would be added on the Senate side when they have this legislation teed up for modification in those Senate subcommittees. But you know what I'm about to say. It's been 11 months and they haven't gotten it done. So 5 weeks ago on this channel, for the Purple Hawk swirling across the Pacific Ocean, I said, you know what? I need something else. I need something else that gets you a check sooner, quicker, and faster, that has bipartisan support. It's a bill, a few hundred pages, not a package, thousands of pages, has bipartisan support, has an inherent deadline, cannot roll over. And you looked at me and said, you know what it is, Lalate. I mean, you created this concept. You created it 2 years ago. What are you asking me about it? Don't you want to do it? And I said, well, do you want to do it? And viewers said, yeah, let's do it. And what are we doing? We are doing bringing back the wonders of 2020 CR for stimulus. Continuing resolution is what the CR stands for. Continuing resolution is a budget bill that's done every 3 to 6 months that funds the federal government. It fits exactly what we just talked about. It is a bill, just a few hundred pages in length. Bipartisan support. Inherent deadline just rolls over a few days, a few weeks, maybe a month, but not several months. Quick, easy, breezy. And we did it in 2020. We made history. The concept is to support Build Back Better Act for stimulus recon, which we just went over, which will happen. But get a check into this continuing resolution before it, in addition to Build Back Better Act, because it's right around the corner. When is this inherent deadline? Early March. So what happened back in 2020? In 2020, we had a similar situation. We got our first stimulus check. We used it up. We needed more money. Second stimulus. We heard about a second stimulus package. Months went on, 11 months of negotiations, no deal. We said we can't keep on doing this. 11 months of negotiations, no deal. So I thought about where I could find a place to put a check into some other piece of legislation and to get it out the door. I looked high and low, and I found the continuing resolution. It fit the bill. So I made the first recording on this channel on December 2020. I announced my creation. I called it CR for Stimulus. I said, go in the live chat and write the hashtag campaign right now, CR for Stimulus. And this is what we're going to try to do. I said in 2020, we're going to try to get a stimulus check into a continuing resolution. There's going to be criticism. They're going to say it doesn't belong in there. I know they're going to say it. And they just say it. We said, we don't care. Get it in there. And we made history. I made history. You, the Purple Power, the community of this channel, made history. Because millions of Americans in the United States got a $600 stimulus check because of my creation. It was inserted into the continuing resolution December 2020. It became law. The check went out. You got it. And guess what also happened? Second stimulus did not happen. Second stimulus fell apart. Never had a bill, never had a check, never had anything. So now as we're looking at fourth stimulus recon, the Build Back Better Act, 11 months of negotiations, the same situation. We're trying to insert a check again in the exact same way. 1.0's version is exactly the same version. The continuing resolution this time has an early March 2022 deadline, just a few days away from now. It's better this time in several regards. One, they have dedicated, as a result of Republican and Democratic negotiations of several months, bipartisan support of $1.5 trillion of discretionary funds in there. $1.5 trillion is enough for at least a stimulus check of $2,000. Second, it has bipartisan support. Third, it has an inherent deadline. And fourth, we've gotten over all the wranglings that we saw last week of people trying to take that money away from us. So what's the update on CR for Stimulus 1.0 after the commercial break. It's coming up in just a second. I have great news for the people of Ukraine, as we were worried about CR for Stimulus 4.0, which was the Russian sanctions bill, and the Ukrainian support legislation. We thought that it was sort of falling apart. It's not. And the great news is that the United States and foreign countries have come together overnight to get support right away. And some of it is now instant. The latest breaking details on CR for Stimulus 4.0 and its versions. 2 and 3.0, which is using economic pieces of legislation that have already passed in the last 7 days, now in the House to the Senate, also heating up. This is big because the midterm elections are just around the corner. It's a new version of Seats for Stimulus, much different than 2 years ago, first debuted on this channel. I have the latest breaking details as well. And then we go into a day in which you would never think there would be so much breaking news and the end of a week before the start of the weekend, and I'm not talking about Ukraine and Russia. I'm talking about the latest comments that came in about the FOMC meeting coming up in just a few days from now. The interest rate spike, where the Federal Reserve is going to do it. One of the Fed heads was here in Southern California and spoke about what he thinks is going to happen. These are breaking news comments you've never heard before until today. And guess what? They're exactly what I had predicted. Then we have new details about the price of gasoline at the pump. Great news, which is brand new in the last few hours. The president has gotten other countries aligned to bring the price of pump down at the past pump, at the price of gasoline at the pump for you. And then, of course, we'll be looking back at the situation on the ground in Ukraine and Russia and how it impacts your wallet. We'll be looking at the great breaking news that came in overnight. If you've seen and followed Lalate on Twitter, I've been very critical about the slow, non-SWIFT action to yank Russia out of SWIFT. Russia has now been yanked out of SWIFT and will cut off its central bank's ability to funnel money in and out of Russia. This is huge. This is a major achievement for the alliance against Russia. It also helps you. Then I have the latest details about flights that have now been canceled in and out of Russia, and also the great news about where we are in the battleground and how it impacts your wallet as well. All these incredible details, a lot of breaking news, brand new, all coming from both from Eastern Europe and also from the shores of Santa Monica. It's all come up in the second half of this video. And stay at the very end because I'm going to show you how to get thousands of dollars right today from Third Stimulus. See you back in 60 seconds. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join Lalate Daily for the excitement of the new Lalate live daily. The excitement starts on mornings Lalate at 9 a.m. Home Lalate returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons Lalate at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on Lalate. And with that, we continue in the second half of a big Afternoons LA broadcast. The great news is that the CR for Stimulus 1.0 is heading to the finish line. We're going to go over the latest breaking details about this $1.5 trillion of discretionary funds that will get you a check first. Then we'll be looking at SS300 right behind it. That would have a 30-day turnaround right behind it. We have great news about CR for Stimulus 3 and 4.0 especially. Breaking news that happened overnight as Vladimir Putin is feeling the pinch. about Swift. I'll have the latest details on that. Then we'll be looking at the big money you can get as a viewer of this channel. It is third stimulus, and that money is paying out not 5 weeks from now, not 5 months from now. Stay to the very end. That is money you can get right today. But first, I need you to subscribe. Go under this video and subscribe and become part of the #3 most watched financial news channel in America. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video and consider becoming a member. And with that, let's go into the breaking news about CR for Stimulus 1.0, 2, 3, 4, SS300, the latest details from the ground in Ukraine, and the big money across the board from third stimulus. Wow, we have a huge second half today, folks. So where are we on CR for Stimulus 1.0? Great news is that everything that we'd hoped for is lined up. The continuing resolution has an early deadline of early March. Good. $1.5 trillion in discretionary funds. Great. $1.5 trillion is enough for a $2,000 stimulus check. Going good so far. Discretion, who has the discretion, the cabinet members of Joseph Biden, including Janet Yellen, held Treasury, head of IRS. Oh, this is looking perfect. Bipartisan support? Yes. Months of negotiations between Republicans and Democrats, House and Senate. And what about those tensions of Thursday and Friday, LA? Those were resolved. The White House and the restaurant union trying to take some of the money, that's not happening. So we're looking really good. What is left to be concerned about, or what is left to be done, is to advocate, because guess what? While all that money is in there and it's really the best setup we've had in a long time, they can still take the money and build a park. So make sure you advocate to Casey, Coons, Warren, Wyden, Sanders, and Schumer. Make sure you tell them, hey, you got $1.5 trillion of discretionary funds in there in the continuing resolution. Early March deadline. Make sure you dedicate that as a $2,000 check to us. Use simple words. Continuing resolution. March. $2,000 check. That's all you got to say. Then remind them of what they did in December 2020. In December 2020, they saw the importance of winning 2 Georgia Senate seats. And so they wanted to get your vote. And to do it, they put a $2,000 stimulus check in there. Well, it's the same situation. Midterm elections are right around the corner, and they have not delivered Build Back Better Act. You have their support, but they want to see your support. Well, give us a darn check, folks. Give us a darn check. It's been 11 months. Don't let us wait another minute and start it across the board. That's the great news about CR for Stimulus 1.0 today. Advocate to those legislators, pick up the phone and call, and continue your Twitter hashtag campaigns, including the great stuff with those emojis by Princess on Twitter. Now let's go to the great news about CR for Stimulus 4.0, which was originally supposed to be a Russian sanctions bill in Congress, and then a Ukrainian support legislation in Congress. I'm going to stay with the terminology CR for Stimulus 4.0, but it's no longer really just a congressional body of legislation. It is a now global effort by the White House and foreign leaders. And boy, we have great news about this overnight. First, Swift, which was not Swift, is now kicking up to be much faster. If you follow Lalate on Twitter, I've been very critical for over a week by certain countries like Italy that were dragging their feet on kicking Russia out of Swift. It's now finally done. The breaking news overnight is that Germany and Western allies have agreed to kick Russia out of SWIFT, and the allegiance is between the United States, France, Canada, Italy, Great Britain, and the European Commission, and this is huge. What does this involve? What is SWIFT? SWIFT is the way in which you transfer funds internationally. So if you have the Direct Express card by Comerica, for example, and you receive your direct deposit accounts, that's by direct deposit ACH. That's the United States. But let's say you're trying to transfer money overseas. You use SWIFT, SWIFT. And the Central Bank of Russia needs to use SWIFT to transfer funds in and out of Russia. We've been very critical on this channel for over a week to get Russia kicked out of SWIFT to make it harder for them to receive funds and transfer funds overseas to finance their war. And finally, they've been kicked out. The country stressed the willingness to take further measures should Russia not end its attack on Ukraine in the European peace order, says the Ukrainian spokesperson. And this is absolutely huge. Number two, flights have been stopped. Lufthansa stopped on Saturday all flights into Russia for at least 7 days. Lufthansa Group continues to monitor the situation closely. Discount Air, Wizz Air, will continue to fly to evacuate people out of Ukraine, and KLM Royal Dutch has halted all Ukrainian flights and unless they are for crew members that are stranded overseas. So very, very swift action on that. In regards to CR for Stimulus 4.0, also, the White House has now finally dedicated millions and billions of dollars of resources, not your money. This is defense spending that is already set aside for our defense, to the country of Ukraine to battle Russia. The great news is it's working. Ukrainian officials have been able to keep Russia at least 18 miles out of the capital city, Kyiv. And Russia has not been able to topple the capital, even though a thought it was going to do it by Saturday. It's not even close, and may never topple the capital. This is after Russia expressed statements of aggression, of both nuclear aggression, and then statements of aggression against two other neighboring countries, saying if you've joined NATO, which they may this coming week, it may go after them as well. All right, let's go now to CR for Stimulus 2 and 3.0. This is the economic pieces of legislation. These will go potentially a little bit later in this equation. These are economic pieces of legislation. The first one passed by Pete Aguilar in the House, Democrat, sent to the Senate, and the Senate Republicans saying, I like it. We're going to merge it together with our workings. Why do I say a little bit longer out that? Because it comes after CR for Stimulus 1.0. It's another way to get you a check, and their concept is, at least Democrats, is they want Build Back Better Act to go, but they want these other pieces of legislation to go before them. And with that, what is the next item that would be likely and would make most logical sense to be done right after CR for Stimulus 1.0? That, of course, is SS 300. And SS 300 has breaking news today as well. SS 300 is a concept debuted by Elizabeth Warren in her campaign for president in January 2020 to raise your benefits up a certain amount of money per month. I came up with the expression of SS 200 to simplify what it is. At the time, she said she wanted to raise your benefits up $200 a month for 6 to 12 months only. But my concept is to do it longer. In her run for president, she said she wanted to raise your benefits up $200 a month for 6 to 12 months and remove the income cap, asset cap, the marriage penalty by act of Congress. She withdrew from her run for president in January 2020, and then Joe Biden says, I'll take care of it. I'll adopt it as my policies. I like them. He won the general election. Then he repeated the policies at joebiden.com, which you can still read it, and said millions of Americans need that $200 extra a month right now in December 2020. What's happened since then? Inflation. So you need it more than ever. And as soon as he came in office, he didn't do it. And Democrats were not happy. So they vowed to do it by fifth stimulus. I covered it all last year. And then that didn't get done. So what did I do in the last 2 weeks? I debuted to this channel how to do SS 300, not 200, lifetime, and potentially 400 a year after that. Let's go over the details of it right now. First, let's go over what it means, and then we'll go over the breaking news that is brand new on a day like this. Who knew that we would get breaking news on this subject matter on a week, on a random off day? And then we'll go over how it works. The concept is very simple: to replace your benefits with a new benchmark. The current benchmark is COLA, and COLA doesn't move, cost of living adjustment. If you replace it with inflation, you would go up 30 days from now, an additional $200 a month on your checks: SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, veterans benefits. Very simple. Well, what is the breaking news on this today? The breaking news on this today is that we're trying to determine where inflation is heading. And to determine where inflation is heading is important, because if we're using inflation as our benchmark for our benefits, where are they now and where would they be 30 days from now when Joe Biden wakes up and does this? In spring of last year, I said that inflation rate was going to be 8% in December 2021 and was not going to be temporary, or the fancy word for temporary, transitory. Federal Reserve said it was going to be 1 to 2% and temporary. I said wrong. Wall Street said 1 to 2%. 2 to 3% and temporary. I said wrong. Guess what? The labor numbers came in December 2021 and they were 7.5%. I was right. I immediately said, I don't think they're temporary. I don't think they're going down. And what happened thereafter was I trained you as a viewer how to figure out inflation before I even report it. If you will look at the price of eggs, the same manufacturer, the same store, the same quantity, see if the price is moving up slowly in the month of January. And you saw it. Or milk, or gas at the pump. So, What do we know right now? We know right now is that a big gauge of inflation is often released before we get the inflation number. The inflation number is once a month. Again, it was 7.5% in December, and we had an inflation gauge come in 1 week ago at over 10% for the PPE. Huge. Then we had our local inflation numbers like Florida, California, Texas, 12% inflation, really bad. Then on Friday, we had the new gauge that is used by the Federal Reserve. Again, this is not a pure inflation number, but a gauge of where the inflation number will be. And it was the worst number since 1982. It was an annualized increase of 5.2%, the worst since 1982, triggered by massive rises of food and energy prices. So what happened in the last few minutes today as well? Ironically, out of nowhere, some people were having lunch. And who was having lunch? A person having lunch was Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller. And where was he? In Santa Barbara. You remember the soap opera? He was in Santa Barbara at a speech at the University of Santa Barbara. I think it was a lunch, either lunch or dinner. And he was asked where he thinks the inflation is going. And he says, it's still really high. He says, these are brand new comments. I expect inflation to remain elevated and only show modest signs of deceleration over the next few months. Breaking news, folks. This is what I've been predicting. So he says that it will not go higher, which is what I said, but it's also not going to plummet. It's going to stay really where it is for a while until it starts to decelerate months later. So he says, a quote, as a result, I believe the appropriate interest rate policy brings the target rate up 1.5% in early summer. The next FOMC meeting, of course, is March 15th and March 16th. He said it's important to convey a determination to deal with higher inflation, and that is no question. The question is what the number is, and this is huge. So this is one of those numbers I want you to learn. I've brought two new numbers on this channel that I want you to learn. First, these inflationary numbers, because it impacts your wallet. And second, the Brent crude gasoline prices coming up in just a second. So we have 5 meetings of the Federal Reserve this year. 5 meetings. The first one is just a few days away, March 15th and March 16th. The current consensus, 5 meetings, 5 interest rate spikes. The concern, 5 meetings, 7 interest rate spikes. Unlikely at the moment. The other concern was that the first meeting, March 15th, would be very tough. Not a quarter basis point like we thought that all the meetings would be this year, but a half basis point. And a lot of people think that the Federal Reserve may not do a half basis point because of what's happening in Ukraine. So what was Waller's comment in Santa Barbara? He says, it is possible that the state of the world may be different in the wake of the Ukrainian attack, and that may mean more modest tightening is appropriate, but that remains to be seen. This, of course, is a very fluid situation. At the time of his comments, we did not even know what the situation in Ukraine was happening. So what is the Federal Reserve going to do? It's going to make an interest rate spike on March 15th. We're going to see whether it is a half or a quarter. I think it should be a quarter. My prediction is it will be a quarter. Now, let's turn back to Joe Biden and what he needs to do. This is very simple, folks. All he has to do is pick up the phone. And you have been really good, folks, on Twitter and Facebook, tweeting and saying, hey, pick up the phone and contact the head of Social Security. Replace COLA with inflation. I mean, this is just ridiculous. This is a simple, darn phone call, Joe. Pick up the phone and replace COLA with inflation. Everyone benefits would go up $200 a month right away. Why? Inflation right now is 7.5%. Even before we get the January numbers, which may be 8%, it's still 7.5%. That would raise you up $200 right now. Then what would happen in December? Well, inflation is likely to track about 4% in December. So that means in January next year, your benefits would go up another $100. That would be $300. He said you were in need of this when we weren't even in an inflationary environment of $200. And now we are. So make the phone call, make the advocacy to make sure he does this. That is where we're tracking on that news story. Now, the other breaking news story today is also really good, is the price of gasoline at the pump. The price of gasoline at the pump is, of course, a brand new subject on this channel as well. A number I want you to know because if you drive, you feel it. If you don't drive, you also experience it because that's causing your milk and eggs to go up if gasoline's going up. And this number is a harder number to control. The issue at hand is the following. If gasoline gets out of control, we could face massive unemployment, a recession, or stagflation, or contracting economy. You don't want to see gasoline get out of control. What is at issue? Gasoline is determined by how many barrels of gasoline are available to buy. If there's less gasoline available to buy, the price goes up. Why is there less gasoline to buy right now? Number one, Russia and Ukraine, because Russia has now been sanctioned, so its oil is out of our distribution channel. Ukraine, its oil's gone as well. And Iran's oil's gone because we are currently in a embargo with Iran over nuclear arms. So the brand new details today, and again, these are also brand new, is that the White House has now found other ways to get the price of crude oil lower for your price at the pump. And this, my friends, is just in the last few minutes. So I had told you Joe Biden did 3 efforts by the end of last week. These are on top of those 3 efforts. What were the 3 efforts? First, the United States government has stockpiled extra gasoline in storage. It's hidden behind them lobster shorts. That's why no one goes looking for it. And so when we need some extra, when we want to bring down the price of oil, we look behind the lobster shorts, release it, not the lobster shorts, the oil. And then suddenly the price drops down. Okay, that was done by the president last week. Number one. Number 2 idea was he is trying to ramp up his settlement negotiations with Iran. An Iranian nuclear agreement is happening, but it's slow, and he's trying to speed it up. Why? Because when that deal is done, millions of barrels of gasoline from Iran will be back in our supply chain, and the price of the pump will drop dramatically. Jump in the live chat and tell me how much you're paying at the pump. Now, he also said late last week that he's prosecuting any U.S. manufacturers of oil that try to stick it to us. But here's the breaking news as well. Joe Biden now says that he's working with other countries, including China, India, Japan, South Korea, and the UK, to get 50 more billions of oil slid into the pipeline, into our distribution channels right away, so that prices stay down. And let me make something clear. I think you would know this. Keeping the price of gasoline down in the United States is as big an issue here as it is in other countries. Everyone needs the price down. The latest comment from Joe Biden overnight is we're actively working with other countries around the world to evaluate the collective release of the strategic petroleum reserves of major consuming countries, and the United States will release additional barrels of oil as so needed. This is brand new. So what number do we want? What number are we tracking at? What number are we learning on this channel? The current environment in the face of the Ukraine-Russia tensions is somewhere above $100 a barrel. When he made that announcement, he hoped to bring it down to a 94, which he probably did. The concern and the analysis is the following. The U.S. economy can support the current level of $100 for 6 months. It cannot sustain for more than 6 months. It also cannot sustain even for 1 month, 125 or 135, which is likely to happen if the situation in Ukraine and Russia continues to unravel. This is why it's big, because remember, this is something that needs to be resolved right away. And with that, let's go into some exciting great news as viewers have learned how to get big sums of money from third stimulus. My purpose on this channel is to get you money every day. Have you cashed a check from this channel? That's what this channel is about. Cashing checks, not tracking checks. And the way to cash some checks is that wonderful third stimulus. It's still paying out. And viewers of this channel have gotten more money from third stimulus this week, and you should as well. If you have not sent me your success stories on social media, private message, please do it, because I want to go over that big sums of money right now. What is this? It's third stimulus. And third stimulus is money that was dedicated for rent, utilities, mortgages. This is more. It's everywhere. Every city, every county, every state. Thousands of dollars have been obtained by this channel. Its viewers, $45,000 a viewer on average. And viewers are getting another round. Have you gotten a new round this month? Let's recap where you get the money in a revamped look of third stimulus. Reach out to your city hall, your city house authority, your county hall, and your county house authority. And the keywords you say are rent assistance because of COVID, utility assistance because of COVID, mortgage assistance because of COVID. You must do three things. You must reach out to all 6 places. You must get multiple applications on file. And you must do multiple rounds. Now, please open that membership newsletter and follow along for all the incredible details of these places you reach out to. And rely on those nonprofits because they pick up the money where you may have difficulty at a county or state level. Average view of the channel is cleaned up at about $45,000, but is getting more money from these rounds on a regular basis. Act now, move now, get this money right away. Don't wait. And here are some of the success stories that came in overnight. The incredible success stories that came in overnight are just growing by the minute. These are viewers who have gotten around before. And if you're sending me a private message on social media, tell me if this is your first, second, third, or fourth round. What is a round? It became law in January 2021. But my viewers were trained by me how to get this before that because they were getting it as sort of a tail end of a little bit of money from second stimulus. The first round of third stimulus was when it became law, January 2021. Second round was last summer. Third round was last winter. Average view of this channel got about $15,000 this last winter. We call it Christmas stimulus. The latest round is happening now this spring. And Charles Garman says overnight, he says, hey, LA, I got another $1,000 for energy assistance today. Great news. Big congratulations to Charles, another $1,000. Karen says, I lost all my jobs. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I wasn't able to pay my utilities or rent, but I contacted an organization in my area and got help with rent and utilities. I got 3 months of rent and 3 months of utilities. LA, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Here's an interesting number to go over. So each round, the average viewer usually gets 3 to 5 months of rent. So just sort of think about that in your mind. 3 to 5 months of rent. In Christmas of last year, I was very tough on viewers, reminding them, don't just get one utility, get all your utilities. So most viewers get 3 months of utilities, but don't just get 3 months of one utility, get 3 months of all your utilities. Now let's look at the other success stories that came in the day before. Bob Bacon, you see him in the live chats. You recognize those bacon shorts. He got 3 more months of rent. There you go, Bob. Then we have Brian Donahue. He says, I just got a second round of rent, 5 months. So that's great. He's on the high end, 5 months of rent and a second round. And the success stories came in even before that. We've had viewers who have been getting rounds every single time across the board. If you're in the live chat and I've seen your name and we've interacted over the last year, and I said, congratulations on your prior round, you should be getting another round today. Don't wait. So Nisi heard me, and she had gotten $30,000, $40,000 from this earlier this year. And last year, she got another $10,000. Here's Karen. She got about $40,000. Let's cut back to Build Back Better Act and those incredible checks in that Build Back Better Act. Build Back Better Act, the first stimulus recon, will become a law. And what I want you to know is that it is times like this that you want to look to a financial news channel like Lalate that covers and stays on topic with this. So if you turn on your television set and they're covering the battle on the ground in Ukraine, don't think that Build Back Better Act isn't happening. It's just they're not covering it because they can get ratings for covering the tornado or hurricane or something else more so than covering Build Back Better. Those incredible checks of Build Back Better include raising the amount of deductions from $10,000 to $72,500, the SALT cap. They got in there cheaper prescription medication across the board, growing from 20 to 30 by year 2028. They got in there the job training, $40 billion of free job training checks in there across the land. Then they got in there also the incredible Medicaid gap fix that provide years of subsidized private insurance to low-income uninsured people in those 12 Republican holdout states. A lot of provisions for third stimulus repeated over into fourth. The CTC got in there $3,600 for the children. That's their checks. The household tax credit, the earned income tax credit for my essential worker, that got in there as well. And with that, there is so many checks in Build Back Better Act that are heating up upwards of $40,000 to $60,000. But I know that's a lot in one recording, so let me give you a recap of where we are right now. Build Back Better Act is certainly the furthest horizon item at the moment because there's a lot of other things that can be done sooner. Doesn't mean it can't be done sooner as well, but has the furthest horizon at the time right now. The first horizon item is CR for Stimulus 1.0. Early March, right around the corner, $1.5 trillion of discretionary funds. The second option that the president should do right away is SS 300, and we need to really ramp up our social media campaign saying, do this. Pick up the phone and contact social media administrator. Replace COLA with inflation. Doesn't need an act of Congress or executive order. Doesn't need anything. He can also repurpose existing sums of money right now and get that out as a stimulus check. It's not executive order. And then we have CR for Stimulus 2 and 3.0. Don't really have an inherent deadline at the moment like number 1, but being worked upon at the same time in the House and Senate. We have all these economic developing details that are really unfolding, which are these barrels of gasoline, which we're watching, the FOMC meeting, which is just a few days away. We're going to get the minutes of it first. And of course, the situation on the ground in Ukraine and Russia. What I want you to understand is that when we're looking at the situations unfolding overseas, these are not your pots of money. And this is not distracting the attention away from you. That's why I have remained on focus and remain on subject. When we're talking about Ukraine and Russia, it impacts your wallet because it impacts all these economic policies back at home. You cannot have world economies collapse because their collapse will cause our collapse. And that is why it's important to understand that none of the funds that are being covered when considering Ukraine or Russia concern your funds. And that doesn't mean that even if Ukraine and Russia is covered for 30 seconds in this channel, doesn't mean it makes your subject matter any less important. There's a lot to cover in a given day, and all these things impact wallets across the land. Coming up later today, we have more breaking news. It is a very fluid situation, but the latest at the moment is that one. Russia's central bank has been cut off, baby. Cut off. Cannot get those SWIFT funds, cannot send funds in or send the funds out. And I got to be very frank with you. It's not just Russia. It's those very rich Russian oligarchs. And if you want a nice expression, it's also the golden passports. It will end the golden passports for wealthy Russianers, these are billionaires, and their families who have been using these funds to support the war. The statement is that the country stressed their willingness to take further measures should Russia not end its attacks on Ukraine and the European peace offers. That's number 1. Number 2, price of gasoline looks like it's under control, so it's going good. Third, U.S. resources have sent massive ammunition and funds to Ukraine. Third, ironically, a strange twist of events, Ukraine, which initially was not going to accept donations in crypto, is now accepting donations in crypto. One thing I just need to insert in here, because people have been asking me, how about family members who have troops overseas? Your troops are not in Ukraine. U.S. troops are not in Ukraine. You're in NATO territory. You are safe. Finally, if you want the latest updates from the battleground, tanks, casualties, video, all the brutal details, follow Lalate on Twitter. Not going to bring it on the channel because it's a little bit too graphic in some cases. But follow Lalate on Twitter. You can also watch Home and Home Screen Stimulus, in which I show you how to follow these Twitter accounts, how to translate them, how to lead your pages behind the people of Ukraine. I stand with Ukraine. And normally you may see me on a day like this in Tiger Red, not Russian red, Tiger Red, but obviously, for obvious reasons, I'm in blue today. And with that, stay informed, stay focused. Join me next as Evenings Ally heats up, 5 o'clock. Then, Evenings Countdown at 6. Home Stream Stimulus with that special I Support Ukraine edition. And then Evenings Extra at 8 o'clock. And the shows continue throughout the night. Stay informed, stay focused, have a beautiful afternoon, and stay with Ally for more.